So today I'm going to go over what I believe is a very underappreciated but powerful tool for C++ programming in Unreal Engine, the Visual Studio Debugger. And first, I'm going to build off a project that I've already started in previous videos, so a link to that will be in the description. Or if you're only interested in how to use the Visual Studio Debugger, then just download the code from the link in the description and skip ahead to where we start using the debugger. To get started, let's go to the content folder and then click on add new so that we can create a new blueprint class. And for the parent class, select actor and then name this new blueprint BP_coin and double click it so that we can edit it. And we're gonna just add a new component, specifically a sphere component. And for this sphere component, we're going to resize it by going to the scale here under transform, set the X to 0.2, the Y to 0.5, and the Z to 0.5. And also for the Z value, I'm just gonna raise it to 100 to lift it up. And you're gonna see here this white ball. To get rid of this, just go to BP_coin on the left here and see where it says editor billboard scale. Under rendering, set that value to 0. Now go back to your sphere component and go down to the collision section, and for collision presets, set it to overlap all dynamic. And then save, compile, go back to the game and start placing this new blueprint anywhere in the game. We're just going to put just a few of them here. Alright. I'm now going to create a new C++ class for our newly created blueprint by going to add new down here and then select new C++ class. And for the parent class, I'm going to choose actor, click next, and then I'm going to name it coin actor and select create class. Once the coin actor classes are finished being created, go to the coin actor header file in Visual Studio, and all we're going to do is create a new public property. So under where it says property here, type in the uProperty macro, and in parentheses just pass in edit anywhere, blueprint read write, and for the category set that to points. And we're going to make this variable of type int and call it points. So just save that and then go to the C++ file, and all we're going to do is add one line to the constructor here, which is going to be points equal fmath : rand range, and we're going to pass in parentheses 1 and 4. And what this is going to do, the rand range function will compute a random integer from 1 to 4 inclusive on both sides, and the points variable will be set to this random integer value. So just save that. Now let's go to the right here and go to our replication concepts character header file, or whatever your character's header file is called. And the first thing we're going to do is add a new uProperty. So I'm just going to copy and paste this macro for the follow camera property, paste it, and I'm going to change the category to capsule. And I'm going to make this variable of type uCapsule component pointer, and I'm going to call it trigger capsule. And the reason why I want this variable is because I want to retrieve the capsule component from the third person character blueprint so that I can add a dynamic delegate for its on component begin overlap. This will allow us to be able to do stuff when the character overlaps with a coin, for example. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a new public property as well. So I'm just going to add another uProperty macro, and I'm going to pass in edit anywhere. I'm going to make it blueprint read write, and I'm going to make the category score. And this variable will be of type int, and it will be called score. And all this variable is going to do is just keep track of the player's score as it collects coins. Now down here where it says protected, we're just going to add a few protected methods. The first one's going to be of return type void, and it's going to be called add points, and it's going to take in a parameter of type a coin actor pointer, and this parameter is going to be called coin actor. End it off with a semicolon. The next method is going to have a uFunction macro, and it's going to also be a return type void, and it's going to be called onOverlapBegin. And it's going to take in a lot of parameters here. The first one's going to be of type uPrimitiveComponent pointer, and it's going to be called overlappedComp. The next parameter is going to be of type aActor pointer, and it's going to be called otherActor. And the next parameter is going to also be of type uPrimitiveComponent pointer, and this one's going to be called otherComp. And then the next parameter is of type int32 called otherBodyIndex. And I just realized I misspelled uPrimitive here. Let's fix that real quick. And then again, going on with the parameters, the next one is of type bool called b from sweep. And the last parameter is of type const fHitResultAddress, and it's called sweep result. End it off with a semicolon. And this function is going to basically be what's going to be fired on an overlap event. And the last function we're going to add is also going to be another protected method. I'm going to make it of type virtual void this time, and it's going to be called begin play, and it takes in no parameters, but it will be overridden, so we do need the override keyword. End it off with a semicolon and save. Then go to your character C++ class. In my case, it's replication concepts character.cpp, and the first thing we're going to do is edit the constructor. So this first line of the constructor that calls get capsule component, then init capsule size. Right above it, type in trigger capsule equals get capsule component, and then instead of get capsule component in the line below, replace it with trigger capsule. So what we have just done by doing this is now we have retrieved the capsule component from the third person character and stored it in this trigger capsule variable. And then at the bottom of the constructor, all I'm going to do is set the new score variable we just created to a value of 0. And before I move on, I'm just going to add another include statement at the very top of the file. So just do hashtag include, and then in double quotes, coinActor.h. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the bottom of the file and add our new onOverlapBegin method. And instead of typing out that long signature again, I'm just going to go to the header file and literally just copy and paste that onOverlapBegin method, and then paste it in here. And then right before onOverlapBegin, I'm just going to type in a replication concepts character double colon, and then at the end, instead of the semicolon, I'm just going to add a pair of squiggly brackets, and underneath this function I'm going to add another return type void function. Type in a replication concepts character double colon. This time it will be add points, and it's going to take in a parameter of type a coin actor pointer called coin actor. And I'm actually just going to fill out the body of this method since it's very simple. It's just 2 lines. All it does, it takes the score variable of the player and increments it by the coin actor's point value. And then after it does that, I'm just going to destroy the coin actor passed in. And now that we have the add points method done, we can go back to onOverlapBegin and finish that. All it does, like any other onOverlapBegin method should, you should check whether or not the other actor passed in is equal to null pointer or not. If it's not, then I'm going to further check whether or not this other actor is of type coin actor. To do that, I'm going to call the isOf function and pass in the static class of a coin actor. And if it is of type coin actor, I'm going to cast other actor to a coin actor by calling the cast function and passing in other actor. And once I have the coin actor, I will call add points and pass in this coin actor. So now that that's done, I will go back up in the middle of the file to add the begin play function. You can add it anywhere. I'm just doing it here because I want to. Type in void a replication concept character like always, then do a double colon, then type in begin play, and it takes in no parameters. And for this, so the reason why I wanted to overwrite begin play is because this is where we're going to actually add the dynamic delegate. This is where we're going to bind that on overlap begin function we just wrote out to the trigger capsule. So first, we should call the superclass's begin play function, and then this is where we do the actual binding. So we're going to call trigger capsule. We're going to get its on component begin overlap, and we're going to call add dynamic on it and pass in this and the address of the on overlap begin method. Alright, and then just close that off with a semicolon. Oh, for some reason it may do this weird autocomplete thing, but just if it does do that, just get rid of it. Make sure it says add dynamic. Add dynamic is a valid function. I don't know why the IntelliSense sometimes doesn't detect it, so just save that and then right click your project under the games folder and click build. Once your project is finished compiling, go back to Unreal Engine, go to the content folder, and then in the content browser double click the BP_coin blueprint and go to file, go to reparent blueprint, look for the coin actor class, select that, and then save compile, and then go back, play the game. I'm just running this in single player mode, but you're gonna see when you go to a coin, we know the on overlap begin function is being called because all those coins that we just overlap with were destroyed. So now we're finally gonna actually use the Visual Studio debugger. To start, exit out of Unreal Engine, make sure you're in Visual Studio, and go to this drop down menu here where when you hover over it, it'll say Solution Configurations, and make sure you have Debug Game Editor selected. Originally, you should have had Development Editor selected. I know I should have specified that, but I've done it in previous videos, so that's why I didn't specify it before. But now it should be Debug Game Editor, and scroll down in your Replication Concepts Character C++ class down to the on overlap begin function. Make sure your cursor is on the on overlap begin function and right click, go to breakpoint and click insert breakpoint. You should see a red dot to the left of the line number where this function is. And basically what a breakpoint is, it's an intentional stop marked in the code where the game will pause its execution when debugging. When paused, you'll be able to examine the state of your game. To test this out, let's go to our project under the games folder, right click, and select debug and do start new instance. And what this will do is it will start up a instance of Unreal Engine, but this time it will now be in debug mode. Once Unreal Engine has restarted, click on the play button and just walk over to any one of your coins. And the first thing you're going to notice is that the game stopped and it took you to Visual Studio. So even if you try to go back to the game, it won't let you. Right now as I hover over Unreal Engine, the game is currently paused. Again, this is because you're in debug mode and we set a breakpoint on the on overlap begin function. So whenever the game calls this method, it will pause the game and it will take you to line 144 where the function is called. And some things to keep in mind, if you look at the bottom left here, this is where your variables can be seen. So right now you can see other actor, other body index, other comp, etc. These are the parameters within the onOverlapBegin function. So, and you might be wondering what is the difference between these tabs. So that's pretty simple. Autos is basically just the variables used, or what variables are important at that current statement of execution. The locals list will basically contain all the variables in the current scope of the function you're in. And then watch one, all that is a list of variables that you specifically want to keep track of. So if I just go to line 147 where this coin actor class or this coin actor variable is set, I can right click it and select add watch. So you'll notice because I did that, this watch one list now has the coin actor variable. The problem is you see this red X on the left because at this point I'm still paused on line 144, so I haven't even gotten to the initialization of this coin actor variable. That's why it says it is undefined, because it is. So we're just gonna go back to autos though for now. And next thing I want to get into are up here, these three buttons: step into, step over, and step out. So let's start with step into. Step into basically will take you further down the call chain by going into the code of the method call if present on the current line you are on. Currently we're on line 144. So if we step into that, it's just gonna take us further down into the method body. But the next option, which is step over, what this will do is it will go to the next, it will execute the current line you're on, and then it'll go to the next line to be executed. So what I mean by that is, for example, if you have a for loop, right? Step over, if you're in the body of the for loop, it won't take you out of the for loop if you press step over, unless you're at the end of the for loop. For example, if your for loop is set to loop 10 times, you're gonna have to click step over 10 times to execute it, the full extent of the for loop, and then get out of it. The next button is step out. So what step out will do is basically the reverse of step into. Or is it step out? Yes, it's called step out. So step out will take you to the line of code that originally called the function you're in. So essentially, to show this, I guess, I'm first going to do step over. So you'll see the cursor is now on line 145, and you'll see this yellow arrow is pointing to 145. So we just did 144, and you know this because if actually you go to the variables down here, you'll see that some of the values are in red text. This just means that the last line that was executed just set these new values for these variables. So now that I'm in line 145, if I do step into here, there's nothing to step into. It's just going to be the same in this case as doing step over, because there's no method call. It's just an if statement. So if I do step into, you'll notice it goes to the next line. Here, I do a method call. So if I do step into, it will take you essentially to this generated CPP file. Now, normally it won't do this, but the reason it's doing this is because is a engine code function. It's a built-in function in Unreal. So unless you have the source version of Unreal, you won't be able to step into engine code. If you want to step into engine code, and I highly recommend you do this because it's super helpful, when we selected the debug game editor option or solution configuration up here, if you build Unreal from source, which I will admit will take a while, you can select a new option called Debug Editor. So instead of Debug Game Editor, it's called Debug Editor. And if you do what we did before, right click the project while it's on Debug Editor mode and then start a new debug instance, then it'll do the same thing, restart Unreal Engine, and then when you run the game, it will pause at breakpoints, show the variables, but this time when you do step into a specific engine code function, it will actually take you to that code instead of this generated stuff here. But I do want to get back into step out. So imagine this was the actual as a function and I did step out. It'll go back to the original line that called that function. A better example of this, I guess, is if I keep doing step over. Another thing to notice is these if statements. Step over is currently going perfectly sequentially. It's going literally line by line by line, as you can see by the movement of this, yellow arrow. Actually, if you hover over it, it gives you some important information. This is the next statement that will be executed. So that's exactly what's happening, and step over just does that. It executes the line you're currently on and moves on to the next line to be executed. So it's hard to see, but if one of these if statements, if one of those if statements conditions evaluated to false, it wouldn't have stepped into the body when we click step over. It would have stepped out of the if statement completely. Of course, you can't really see that. But so next up, we're on line 147. It does call the cast function. So if we did step into in the source version in debug editor mode, it would take you to the engine code for cast. So, but we're not in that right now. So we're just going to do step over. Now, this is exactly why I wanted to make the add points function, because if we call step into here, now it'll actually step into the add points function. And if we do step over, you'll notice the score variable and the coin actor points variable. You can see them in this window here, this variable window on the bottom here. So currently our score is 0 because line 154, we're on it, but we have not executed yet, but we're about to. So if we do step over again, you will now see the score value is 3, and it's in red because the last line 154 was just executed. That's why it's red, because that last line directly affected this variable. And then if we do step over again, step over, this time, because we reached the end of the add points method, it'll just go back to on overlap begin. And this is pretty much it. I mean, we don't have any other breakpoints, so there's nothing left to do. At this point, we can press continue, and what continue will do, it will continue executing code until the next breakpoint. Or if there isn't one, then it'll just resume the game and hand over the control back to the user. So that's exactly what we're going to do, and just like I said, we are back in control. Now, if we activate that breakpoint again by overlapping with another coin, we're going to be back again at line 144. So a better way to show what continue can do is, let's set another breakpoint. Let's set a breakpoint random line, like line 154. Right click, set a breakpoint here, insert breakpoint, and why not the score variable? I'll even add a watch to it. And now if I do continue, because now there's a new breakpoint, it'll execute code until this breakpoint. As you can see, the yellow arrow moved from here, line 144 to 154. And because I did that, now as you can see, the score is now 3. And actually it also shows in my watch list the coin actor parameter passed in. So if we expand that, you can also see the points there is 2, right? So we haven't executed this line yet, but what should happen when I click step over is our score should be incremented by 2 and it should become 5. So if I do that, as you can see, it is now 5. So I'm just gonna press continue again because that was a good showing. And now I'm going to overlap with, once again, another coin, and I just want to show you some other features here. So you can also, if you right click these red dots to the left of the line numbers, you can also delete breakpoints or disable breakpoints as well. And there's also other stuff like conditions and actions that I won't get into in this video, but let's say I decide to, I'll disable it for now. I won't delete it, And now I continue, because now there's no other breakpoints to go to, it'll just resume the game. Just some other useful features of the debugger that I want to go over is on the right side here. You'll see something called diagnostic tools, and this is pretty useful because you have different tabs for events, memory usage, and CPU usage. The events tab basically just gives you a list of all the steps you've taken as well as all the breakpoints you've reached. Memory usage and CPU usage I won't go into because it requires you to enable it, and I'm not going to go over that right now, but it is very useful when you do enable it. And then also down here on the bottom right, you'll see a bunch of tabs here. The ones I find very useful are the breakpoints. This will just give you a list of all the breakpoints you've set, and it will also differentiate between which ones are enabled and disabled. Also, the call stack is pretty useful. For example, right now I'm currently in the on-overlap begin method, and I'm currently executing a line in the on-overlap begin method. But if I keep stepping over and then I step into this add points method, you'll notice that it created another frame in the call stack for add points on the top here. And then if I further step over into this add points method and keep stepping over until the end, then the call stack frame for add points will be removed. So that one's also pretty useful. The error list, this is just useful in general, just if you have errors in your code. Although if you're able to debug, you shouldn't have many errors in your error list to begin with. Output is same as, not the same, but very similar to the output menu when you run in really development editor mode or any other solution configuration mode. Command window, again, this is the same. You can just run commands. Exception settings, I don't usually use this, so I'm not going to go into it. If we go up here to the left of these step buttons, you'll see options for restart and stop debugging. So what stop debugging will do is if you click this button, it'll not only stop the game, but it will literally stop your instance of Unreal Engine because you're in debug mode. And then what restart will do is similarly, it will stop your game and it will restart Unreal Engine. And that's pretty much it in terms of simplistics. So if you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. The source code for this, if you want to check it out, will be in the description below, as well as all of our other social media links. We have a Discord, so please join. And that is pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching, and have a nice day.